he challenged me and was like, how do you double our income in the next 60 days? And so I looked at all the different asset classes. And as we started running numbers, we realized RV parks hit everything out of the park. So we jumped into RV parks right away.
Welcome to the Top Tier Podcast, where we take you to new heights in the world of real estate, capital raising, and business entrepreneurship. Meet your hosts, Daniela and Landon, industry experts passionate about success. Join them on the Top Tier Podcast as they share real-world experiences, practical solutions, and strategies to overcome business and real estate challenges. From expert interviews to actionable advice, they aim to inspire and empower you. Subscribe now to never miss an episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Top Tier Podcast. Today, I want to introduce you to Mychele Bisson of Bisson Peak Ventures. She is an RV park queen, and I want to hear all about her story from residential investments into RV park acquisitions and their newly formed fund. Mychele, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to be asked.
Yeah, I'm super fired up. What I'm excited about mostly too is there is like this natural progression. I feel like in real estate, I see a lot of people do, and you've done it, is to transition from residential toward the commercial space. And I see that happen, or, they head towards larger multifamily, or, in your case, RV parks. And Daniela and I are working on some self-storage commercial facility stuff. So I guess to start out, maybe dive into a little bit of your origin of your starting path from getting into real estate, what that looked like, where it began, kind of the origin story of why real estate for you, and kind of progress through that.
Yeah, well, so 5 years ago, actually in October, crazy enough, we just had our 5-year anniversary of investing.
Wow.
My husband was in spirits and alcohol, and we were kind of going through all of that COVID stuff and everything that was happening.
Oh, man.
It was, well, what he worked in is he actually worked on the restaurant side. So he worked with franchises.
Oh, no.
And so with everything that was happening there, all business pretty much stopped. And so it was kind of one of those realizations of, what do we do if the world never opens back up, or if the world pivots into a new way of doing things and we just don't do restaurants anymore? That could happen. I mean, we never thought that the world would shut down, but it did. So it was kind of one of those, like, what's our game plan? Like, what are we doing? And what are we doing to make sure that we're not basing our lives on another business outside of ourselves, where somebody else dictates what's going to happen? Because sales go down in the restaurant industry, sales go down in the liquor industry, at least on his side of it, not so much on the liquor store side, but it causes this ripple effect through the industry, which, that could take him out of a job.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then there's always the problem of there's always younger, hungrier people who come in after you, and they've got newer ideas and new ways of doing things. And so you've always got your head on a chopping block at any given point. And we actually had a really good lifestyle. And it was one of those things that I was like, what are we doing? Like, if you lost your job tomorrow, could we maintain ourselves? Would we still be here? And what does that look like for our family just in general? And so during that time, a really good friend of mine had actually just up and moved her entire family to Tennessee. And I was like, what are you guys doing? So they didn't move to Tennessee. They literally went and bought like 3 cabins in Tennessee all at the same time and had 2 kids in a private college. And I was like, what's happening? Like, you've been a stay-at-home mom the entire time I've known you. Like, what's going on behind the scenes that I'm not aware of? And so they came back to visit, and I invited them to dinner. And so kind of just dove right in, like, what are you doing? What's happening? And they said, well, we've been investing in real estate for 16 years.
Wow.
And I was like, what do you mean? So they had been buying like townhomes and single family homes for 16 years in Colorado, and they were renting them out. So at this point, they had this awesome portfolio that was all cash flow. And they just kept saying the word cash flow. And Patrick was like, I think that might be something we could do. And so The funny thing is as you get to know us, you realize that I hear things differently than my husband says them.
You too?
Yes, yes, it's a, I don't know if it's really a disease. I tell my husband all the time, "You're welcome." But one of the things that happened was, is he said, "I think we could do that," and I heard, "We're now real estate investors."
You just were like, "We're doing it. I'm jumping in."
That.
And well, I don't know if you guys have ever done your Clifton strengths, but my big Clifton strength is that I am an activator.
Yep.
Okay.
And so I hear an idea and I'm already 10 miles down the road before everybody figures out that we're actually going to do this thing. And so, so I, go out. I literally the next day email a real estate agent and I said, "Hey, listen, I want to go into real estate investing. This is what I'm looking for. This is the area that I want it in. And this is what I will pay you. And if you do a good job, I'll bring all my deals to you." And so she's like, "Great. You want to meet tomorrow morning? And I can show you like what I do, how I rent my things out. Like we can talk about it." And I was like, "Great." So we set up a meeting for 11:30 the next morning. At 9 a.m., I got a call from her. Patrick had gone to the golf course. I got a call from her at 9 a.m. and she was like, "Hey, I've got this listing that I'm about ready to put live. Do you want to come check it out? I think it fits what you're looking for." And so I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I texted him a couple times. I called him. He didn't answer the phone. He was on the golf course. So I went and looked at the property and I was like, "Yeah, I think this fits into what I want." And so I put in an offer. And as I was driving home, it got accepted. And I realized I should probably like tell my husband we just bought a house.
Oh my God.
So amazing.
And
Landon can relate to this. He literally is like a huge golf guy, like competitive golfer. So,
I literally went to a golf thing like this entire deal.
really? Yeah, no, we actually, so Patrick, his company used to sponsor the PGA Tour.
Okay, dokie.
And so I've been able to play golf with some like massive pros. And actually, we're still good friends with a lot of them. So yeah. So like when we got to Scottsdale, we have a really good friend who lives out there who plays on the Champions Tour.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we have the Champions Cup happening right now as we speak, right here at the Phoenix Country Club. We're going to go out there this weekend and watch the old guys go play some really good golf. That'll be fun.
I've been able to actually play golf with Mark O'Mara and Tom Pernice Jr. and Val Devia. I can never say his name. The French guy.
it's like, darn it. Can never say his name, but he's famous.
Right.
So great.
So yeah, so now I've been able to play golf with them. I am a 16 handicap, so I'm pretty solid.
What's really cool about that little quick story, like what's beautiful about that is many people will, there's so many people in getting into real estate with anything really, but just in real estate in general, will want to get into it and drag their feet and not do anything for 2 years, 3 years. I hosted a meetup in Bend over the summer while we were up there, and a few of the attendees were like, "Yeah, I just come to these meetups. I haven't really done anything in like 2.5 years, but I know I want to get into real estate." You took the exact opposite approach. And I always tell people too, like you always have to be ready. So meaning preparation meets opportunity. But what's really cool is like, it's not necessarily preparation in the aspect of skills and competencies. There's also the level of preparation mentally. Like you said, you're an activator. You just do the thing. You just go and do it and you'll just figure it out later. And there's a part of everyone that has to have a little bit of that of like right now, Danielle and I are going towards self-storage facilities. We don't personally own a self-storage facility right now, but we're pushing forward. We're about to put one under contract, I think this week or probably next week. And it's like, okay, cool. We're going to figure it out as we go here. And we learn that skill. You just started with it. That's what's freaking sweet. So tell us more about that deal. So you call your husband, you tell him about it.
Yeah, no, I called
Did you call him or did you wait for him to get off the course and come home and you were like, guess what?
Actually, no, my husband, so I texted him, emailed him, or texted him and called him. He didn't answer. Finally, when he was on hole 10, he called me back and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we bought a house." And he was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "It'll be fine. We'll talk about it when you get home." And I hung up. So he lost that tournament.
Oh, it's a bad on you. That one's
so I don't talk. I actually learned a big lesson. I do not call him anymore during like tournaments or golf games. I just leave him alone. And then he finds out, what I bought after he gets off. So I don't really know if he is more stressed out about that or,
Yeah, the golf. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, but no, so we bought it. By the time he got home, I had it listed on Zillow. I had already kind of figured out like how I wanted to list it, what I wanted to list it for. 2 days later, I had a contract and a deposit on it. So that was on a Saturday. So by Monday, I had my first deposit and a contract. I hadn't even closed on it yet. I just was very solid on, I'm getting this house. And so I went to Patrick and I was like, hey, look, I made an extra $700 a month doing nothing. And he was like, well, that was easy. We should do it again. So I went out and got another one that day.
What? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
In your backyard?
I mean, all of our first long-term rentals were all within 5 miles of us. So yeah, so I did that. So we closed on both those houses on the same day and moved people in and proceeded to do that about 5 or 6 more times over the course of the next couple of months.
Really quick, for people that are watching, you're talking about pretty good cash flow in Colorado. So
Yes.
Are you finding distressed, value add? Like, is this just like luck of the draw? I mean, was the market, I mean, we're talking about pandemic, like prices were freaking sky high. Interest rates are super low. Like, talk to me about that.
So the interest rates had just gone low and the market had not rocketed yet. So I actually jumped in at like a perfect time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because all of the houses that we went after, they all were built within the last 5 years. And so they all cash flowed phenomenal because they were still low and the rates were low. So all of our houses that we own are under 3%.
Were you able to, how were you acquiring those? Were those FHA loans? Were those 20% down conventional loans? What were you doing?
So we did a bunch of conventional loans. We took out stocks, we took out savings, we redirected things. Like we pretty much went after whatever we could because we did them conventionally. And then we ended up maxing ourselves out and couldn't do it anymore. And then at that point, we started going after DSCR loans. And so that's actually how we acquired our beach houses. So we then went into STRs. And actually that was funny because the way that we went into that is because we bought resort zone land in Scottsdale. And so when we broke ground, we decided we were going to run them like STRs. So we've got this entire complex that we run like STRs. But I had never run an STR. And so I was like, I should probably buy one and figure out how they run before I do them on mass scale.
Right.
And so I bought one, which ended up turning into 2, which then, I realized I don't like running STRs. So I placed management.
Yeah, it's a lot. It can be a heavy lift for sure.
It is. It's a big deal. And I don't like answering phone calls in the middle of the night if like pipes, freeze or blow. I mean, none of our pipes have ever frozen, but you know what I mean? Like if something breaks or alarm goes off or whatever. And so I realized really quickly, I don't like doing that. And so I placed management. We built our resort, which was a construction loan. And then it converted into a conventional loan, which actually was at 4% after it converted. So we were still really good. Yeah. And then from there, we had this resort that makes about $300,000 a year, but we net. And my husband decided that he was going to leave his job, his W-2. He was like, I think we've made it. We don't need to do this anymore. And so he left his W-2. And that day he was like, we've got to learn how to do this without using any of our own cash. And that's when we actually joined the Sub-2 community. And he challenged me and was like, how do you double our income in the next 60 days? And so I looked at all the different asset classes. And as we started running numbers, we realized RV parks hit everything out of the park. So we jumped into RV parks right away.
That's so cool. There's so much similarity, not to the scale and performance of what you guys did in terms of the world that you guys put yourself into, but similar mindsets of, myself, we got multiple short-term rental properties, a couple long-term rental properties, all of which, 10, 15, 20% down payments. We have so much money just tied up in these properties that are just sitting there, having now been, I'll call it enlightened in the creative finance world and using other people's money. But, I got to a point very similarly. And I remember the exact moment actually in this house, we used traditional financing in this house, and in our bathroom, I'm standing there talking to my wife and I'm like, we can't afford any more down payments on homes. I got to figure out a way to either use other people's money or how do I hear about this zero money down, like all these different things, and started Googling. And then that's where I found the creative finance world, and everything's just blossomed from there, which is beautiful. But so you get pressed by your husband to double your income. And so you start looking at different asset strategies. So you, I guess for you, is that just a realization? You're like, we're done with a long-term rental game, or we're going to transition to something different to diversify? Or what was that mindset shift? Because you're looking and exploring different options. What made you, I guess, go away from what you already know with your short-term rentals and long-term rentals?
Well, I've always been somebody who likes to learn new things. And so I kind of felt like we had already mastered long-term rentals, and now we were kind of mastering short-term rentals. And the way I mastered it was by hiring the right management. But when we actually joined the sub 2 community, what ended up happening was we joined with the elite, I think it's called the master's program now or something. But we were put with a coach. And so we implemented the one-on-ones that we were allowed with these coaches, and actually touched base with Justin Tomanowski. Everybody knows Justin. And he's awesome. And he really, like, as we were talking to him, I was like, I don't think we can do single family homes anymore. And, you know, there's very limited options for buying resort zone land. So, you know, that you're going to have to, but it's a year to 2 year build if you're going to build something from the ground up. And we needed cash flow right away, because now my husband's left his W-2. We just opened up a resort, and we weren't totally sure how it was going to do. And we just needed this. He would just have felt safer if we could just bring in something and do something cash flowing. So we really did start looking at, like, you know, businesses, storage units, multifamilies, and mobile home parks. And actually RV parks weren't really in the list of things that we were looking at, because we had never played in that arena before. Not that we played in the others, but for some reason it just didn't come up in the conversation. Mm-hmm. So about 2 weeks into sub 2, as we're learning about creative finance, somebody was like, have you guys looked at RV parks? And so they sent us an RV park, and we really started just looking at it and doing the due diligence. And I knew the area that it was in because my daughter, as a child, was a competitive dancer, and we had gone there for competition. So I knew the tourist area and the influx of people that came to that area, and was like, this should be doing so much better than it is. And so that was how we kind of jumped in. That was 2 weeks after we joined sub 2.
Wow.
And we closed that, because that was October. We closed that December 28th. So that
how'd you finance?
Well, actually, so we were still learning the creative finance thing. We really didn't know what we were talking about, but I am very much about falling forward. So we just kind of threw out seller financing, and it stuck. So the guy was like, yeah, you know, we could totally do that. And so when we were working out, we didn't think he would do the whole deal. So we actually just took what he gave us originally, which was 30%. Yeah, it was 30%. And then we were like, okay, well, we've got that. Now we need to figure out the rest. And we went into the community again and found a gentleman that was brand new. He was a connector. And we were like, hey, we're looking for a private money partner. Who do you know? Because he was in the Missouri area, which is where our first park is. And he was like, well, I just got here. And we were like, you're not new anymore. Let's go. So he actually put us in contact with a gentleman who built like 7 hotels in Branson, Missouri. And so he was in Hawaii on vacation with his family at the time. We touched base. He was like, yeah, this is completely in my wheelbox. We met with him, and then he was like, okay, well, this is what I can do, but I'll do something even better. I'll introduce you to my bank. And so he actually sponsored us at the bank. And so the bank actually gave us 80% of the deal. He gave us around $400,000 towards the deal. And then the seller financed about $540,000 of it. So we actually ended up with all of the money plus a CapEx.
Okay. I got questions. So we have a DSCR loan, investor loan. That's 80% LTV, loan to value. We have from the bank. We have a down payment from $400,000 down payment from a private money partner.
Correct.
And then the seller finances you a piece of the park as well.
Correct.
Did you have any issues bringing in private money as the down payment for a DSCR loan? I'm asking because we talk a lot openly about never bringing any of our own money to deals. And I've been on so many calls lately with lenders and talking to people in the self-storage arena where they're like, you can't get an SBA loan and not put your own skin in the game. You can't get a DSCR loan and not put your own skin in the game. They have to be in the LLC. You have to, that. And so enlighten me.
Well, the sponsor had a really good working relationship with the local bank, which is who did it for us. Local banks always run a little differently than big chain banks. And so he had built most of his hotels through that bank and had a very long-standing relationship with them. I think they'd done deals for like 25 years together.
Wow.
And so when we went in to meet with them, it was actually really nerve-wracking because we met with the branch manager and the manager of the bank as a total, and kind of sat there. They listened to our spiel. They heard us talk, and they kind of looked at our private money partner and they go, "You're going to sign for them?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Okay." And the guy got up and he walked out, and we were just like, did we not get it? What happened? And so the guy poked his head back and he goes, "Oh, Marcus will handle all the paperwork." And that's his second in command. And we were like, "What?" And so we were like, "But wait, we have to close it in like 45 days. And he goes, "Yeah, that's not a problem." I know, it all came together. It was supposed to be. I'm just a true believer that whatever is meant for you will always happen for you. And that was kind of like that moment, that clinching moment of, okay, this is supposed to be our thing.
Right.
So was this park off market, and was it off market, and was it brought to you by a community member?
So it was not off market. It was actually on LoopNet, but a community member did show it to us.
Okay.
And so it was on LoopNet, but it was way overpriced.
Okay.
And so it started at $3 million, and we actually got them down to 1.8. And he was going to give us the 1.8 cost if we closed before the end of the year, which is why we were pushing so hard to get it done by that December 28th date.
What's
so
cool
many
is
lessons in it.
so many lessons there.
Well,
what's
one
cool
of the
too
biggest
is like
lessons-
a lot of your previous experience. Again, this goes back to opportunity meets preparation. Like you have so much experience with acquiring single family homes, and then you had the short-term rental resort and how to operate a short-term rental, and learn that you didn't want to do hospitality and customer service as it relates to that. And I totally get and support that. But all of those skills that you learned, the competencies that you developed, and all the calluses you developed led you to this opportunity where an RV park is a lot of all of that blended into one. And so what's beautiful is like you acquire it through creative finance within the first 2 weeks. I mean, 3 months of being in sub 2, using seller finance, using a DSCR loan and all these things. And you're just skyrocketing, and it's so cool to see that come to fruition, genuinely, to see someone take massive action, fail forward. Like you said, you're an activator, and do all the things that just beautiful. And so I guess day one, when this thing opened, or I guess, what would you call it? Not open your doors. What would you say? In the RV
took over.
What is it?
Because it was running. It was actively running when we took it over.
Yeah. So were you cash flowing day one?
Yes, we were. Actually, the day that we closed on it, it was interesting because we made $70,000 as an acquisition fee that day. And then we walked into the park, and the gentleman actually handed us a bag of like $30,000 for January's payments.
Okay. That's amazing.
Yeah.
As you're evaluating these, I want to go back because I know you're going to say like the biggest lesson that I learned, but I'm curious to you, as you guys are now you're doing tons of evaluations with Pat, who I know as like our old COO client. And after debt service, what are you comfortable with cash flowing? Like, I feel like this is a very big misconception around cash flow. There's NOI, but after debt service, are you comfortable breaking even? Are you comfortable with a certain percentage? Is it a spread that you have to make every month where you're like, I will only go this low?
One of the things that we always do is we always start with an NOI of 200,000 whenever we start evaluating a park, because we want to be able to make sure that we're debt servicing and paying for management, because I don't want to manage. We've learned that I am not a manager of properties. And ultimately, I want to be an owner. Like, I want to be able to step out of it and know that it runs without me. And so our managers make about $40,000 to $50,000 a year. And then we service our debts. So we clear a pretty significant amount, even just with that. And that we put in as a war chest. We make sure that we have improvements, and then we pay ourselves. So So we do pretty good, and especially across all of our assets, we're doing pretty comfortably. Patrick doesn't have to go back to work, so that's always a good thing. But my thing is because everybody always comes to us with smaller parks that don't cash flow as much. My big thing is we're very big sticklers on certain things. We have to have over 50 pads, and we have to have at least a cash flow of 200,000, because anything below that, I feel like you can get yourself in a sticky situation where you either don't hire the right management, or you have to become the management, or if something breaks, then how are you fixing that? And you want to make sure that you're always servicing your debt, paying back your investors, doing all the things. Our investor on our first park, actually, we're getting ready to pay him out about a year and a half early. Because I think he was on a 5-year, I think it was a 5-year play. And I think we're going to pay him out in the next year or two. But he actually has already asked about our fund because he wants to invest again.
So great. Okay. So real quick, wrapping up this first big one into RV park, get into sub 2, dive right in. All of these things are coincidentally happening for you. Biggest lesson learned from this park. And now that you have a park, where do you go from there?
Oh, well, biggest lesson that we did learn in the negotiating part was to always ask for more. Because now that we're friends with all of our previous owners. And so, we were all sitting around one night with our owner of this park, and like it came up in conversation. He goes, "Oh, I would have seller financed more of it." And we were like, "You would?" He was like, "Yeah, you guys just never asked."
Okay.
And so, yeah, I mean, I was like, "Oh, that was eye-opening." Okay. Yeah, no, really, it really hurt. That hurt a lot.
I bet.
So, but you know what? Great lesson. Now we always ask. So we learned that lesson, went into our second park 60 days later. And that one we actually got 100% seller financed.
Wow. Okay. Same area? Are you guys just like anywhere, or how does that work? Just where the deals are?
That one actually was 2 hours north of our current park, our first park. So that one's on Route 66. And the crazy thing with that one was we 100% seller financed it. So we seller financed it, and then the down payment we seller financed for 3 years. So we walked in with no money. And then the manager actually decided, or the owner stayed on as our manager.
So what was their motivation? Why did they want to sell?
Well, so when the broker originally brought it to us, she believed that, because she was also, the owner actually was a commercial bank loan lender. She worked in the commercial bank service and was also running the park, and her park was suffering because she was always at work. And so she assumed that she wanted to quit the park so that she could focus on her career. When we actually met with her, we found out that she actually wanted to quit the bank, but she was afraid because she was afraid they would pull her loan.
Wow.
And she wanted to stay in the park.
Wow.
And so we ended up taking over the park. And when we found out this entire situation, we changed the way that we structured the deal. And so we structured it for her to 100% seller finance it to us. We gave her 5% equity in the park and brought her on as a manager. So she actually quit her job. She put in her 2 weeks notice that day, and now she is our full-time manager.
Okay. That's really, really
So
cool.
creative.
What
So
a great way
creative.
to solve her problems, though,
Yeah.
and that's so neat.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and one of the big things that was a clincher for her was that she really, really wanted to go on vacation. She hadn't done it in like 10 years.
oh my
And
goodness.
so when we met with her, I was like, okay, we'll pick a month. And so she picked the month of September. And so she and her husband actually went with friends, and they went on a transatlantic cruise for I think it was 6 weeks.
Wow.
And me and Patrick came in and ran it for 3 weeks. And then my dad came in and ran it for 3 weeks.
So that leads me to believe it's not rocket science to operate.
No. Well, and that one is, I think it really depends on the size of your park. That one's kind of it's a slower park. It's a little quieter. It's more of a transient where people pull in for either a night or a couple of days. The facilities are a pool and a laundry room that's coin operated. there's really not a lot going on, and everything is systemized. Like they get an email when they book, they get an email the night before they come in, giving them their information. And then they get a text message the next morning with all of their codes. And so everything is paid for online. Everything is done for them. They get sent a map. Everything is pretty easily laid out. And so that one is a really easy one to break into, especially since my dad was like, I want to see what it's like to run one of these. And that was really, I mean, though I say it's a quiet park, but everything in the world happened to my dad while he was there. And he just kept texting me going, seriously. Like a gentleman actually got stuck in the trunk of his like Mini Cooper while my dad was there. And my dad had to like save him from being trapped in the trunk of his Mini Cooper.
Oh my gosh. Your poor dad. He's like, thanks, Mychele. This is going great.
Yeah. He was like, quiet my ass.
Oh my gosh. So, all right. You're well on your way. You're owning and operating RV parks. And when do you think the shift happened for you where you felt like we need a fund? We need to change the way we're doing this?
Actually, that came pretty early on.
Okay.
We knew that we wanted to start doing this. We knew after our first one, we really liked the asset class. Like we went and lived in our park for 3 months.
Wow.
And so we really kind of wanted to learn exactly how they run, how systems run, how the guests are. Like we wanted to know everything that we could. I'm very much somebody who I want to master one thing before I move on to the next thing. And so if I'm going to do RV parks, I'm going to master them. Like this is going to be the thing that I do. And so jumped right in, lived on the park for 3 months, set up all the back end systems, hired managers, did all the stuff, renovated, kicked people out because that park was overrun by some really undesirable tenants and guests. We don't call them tenants in the RV industry world, but, and so it was definitely one of those things that I always say my first park was the hardest, but it was worth it because I learned everything that I needed to learn. Everything else looks like a piece of cake. So, I took on drug dealers, took on a prostitute, like
nice.
I had
so when you get
a knife at my security, like I am now known as the scariest woman in Branson. So.
Yes. You're taking it down. So when you get booking, so then I guess as it relates to tenant landlord rights and laws and whatnot, I guess in this space, in Arizona, it's 28 days or more, you become a true tenant in the short-term rental world. So if your booking is longer than that, you have different rights and whatnot. In Washington, it's like, we basically own your house if we stay after 28 days, don't even think about it. In the RV space, I guess, how does that work if they're booking longer than, I guess, what does that time frame look like? And when do their rights change, or what does that look like?
So it's just like every other thing, like state to state, everything is different, but a lot of the time they fall under resort zone laws. And so I know, like with a lot of the parks that we have currently in the states that we're at, we can actually pull somebody out in 2 hours.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different where if I'm just, things are just not working and we just need you to leave, I can ask you to leave. And if I call the sheriff, he will bring a tow truck and they will pull you out.
That's awesome to have that kind of support, community of support.
Yes.
Yeah, because like realistically, they're just squatting on a gravel pad or a concrete pad. It's not as if they're squatting in your brick and mortar in your home.
Yeah.
So,
and it's considered private property. So, and the crazy thing is that in some states, if they are unplugged, so if they are not plugged into your electricity and your sewer, they are considered an abandoned vehicle at that point, and they're no longer a home.
Oh,
wow.
So they're a business and you can have them towed.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, I can imagine that there's plenty of parks across the United States where there are undesirable or really challenging guests. I mean, this is actually total side note, but I don't go camping that often with my family because of how often we've rolled up to campsites and then we're stuck next to another family or another guest and they're just so challenging, like whether it's just profanity or drugs and alcohol or whatever it is. And then you're stuck, you're set up for the weekend. And it's like, where are you supposed to go with your family? It's interesting how that has really, I mean, if I'm really thinking about it, honestly, that's really determined why we haven't done that more often.
Well, you should come to my parks then, because we don't allow that.
I might have.
Quite
And
hard.
it's like, honestly, like think about it, right? Campgrounds and in national parks, outside of national parks, there's no oversight. There's
Yeah.
no manager. There's nobody there that's controlling what's happening in that area. And it
Yeah.
can feel like a little, it's totally loosey-goosey.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen people get kicked off of campsites, but I imagine it's completely a different cultural atmosphere at an RV park.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there are the state ones where there really aren't a lot of people that are there to control everything. When they're privately owned parks, I know like for us, you have to sign a couple of waivers to like come in, but there are strict rules. Like we can ask you to leave. You're not allowed to be loud after this time. And we set everything up according to like how we feel the guest would feel. So like our communal areas, like with like our swings or our fire pits, everything is in one section that doesn't bother everybody else. And
That's
so we want to make sure that we're moving everybody away, because yeah, if you guys want to sit at the fire pit and have a good time, that's totally fine. Just don't do it in the center of everything where everybody's sleeping.
Right.
And so we're big on that. One of our parks in Virginia, it's 98 acres. And so it's got full water slides, arcade, it's got a grill, it's got a full lake that we seed so you can do catch and release and paddleboarding on.
That's cool.
But we have everything sectioned out so that we have a group that we have people who stay there long term, and they have to pay an HOA fee, but they have their own community center with their own pool.
Oh, okay.
Then we have our guest area, and our guest area has their own pool rec area where the arcade and all the water slides and all of that is located. And so we keep them very separated, specifically because one side is, more community. They all hang out together. One side is a little shyer about that, and they're still kind of getting to know everybody. And so that way they're not overwhelmed by each other.
That makes a lot of sense. That's a really interesting strategic choice on especially a property that large. The first thing as soon as you said water slides, I'm like, maintenance. Like I'm thinking about all these things, and frankly, these are limiting beliefs, because once you get into something, you learn how to do it. It's so funny how that changes so much.
Well, and you have to realize too that when it comes to like RV parks, while that park in particular probably does have a larger overhead than my other parks. Like my other parks run at like 30%. This park still runs at only 40%. So, I'm still making a bigger income than I am losing. And there's all the value add opportunities. So that park in particular, just on sites, does over $1 million a year because of all of our amenities. Right. But you add in things like my golf carts make $100,000 by themselves a year. So that's extra added income. I have a store that does about $100,000 a year. We sell ice. We sell propane. We sell community passes for $20 where everybody in the community can come in and use our stuff. We have a full roster of events that people come and pay for. Like we have karaoke night every Saturday night. People pay to come and do karaoke at our park. Like, so cool. Like there are different value adds. So while the pads alone make $1 million, the rest of the park does about $600,000 for all the value adds that we add.
Okay. All right.
So having maintenance on my water slides, small price to pay for bringing in that kind of cash.
I mean, this is for every small time, like not small time, for every investor that's struggling with this. This is something that I struggle with. It is something as I evaluate properties. I came from a background where I came from family business, very, very big conservative. You never take on partners. You do everything yourself. You you work in the business, but you take all of the profit from the business. And it was ultimately capped, obviously, because there's no way to grow without people. And I'm working through this. This is a thing for me, and it's cool. I'm always so encouraged by people that are more of an activator than I am. Because although I can like charge forward and make decisions, I still get like mired in the weeds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah. My husband actually does. He was struggling with it for a while too, but he's like slowly learned to expand his mind as I keep throwing him into new projects. So,
Well, you keep finding the deals. You are the pipeline. Are you the person that everyone's calling with the deals?
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, between people in the community, brokers that we work with, and actually, I do a lot in the RV park industry. And
Okay.
so I have a lot of people in the industry who bring me off-market deals who are like, hey, I was calling on so-and-so to upgrade these systems. They said they were thinking about selling. I gave them your number. Do you want to call them?
Okay, I need you to extrapolate on that, because that is a very big missed opportunity for people that decide to settle in an asset class. How do you become involved in the infrastructure of the industry so that you are really have your fingers in it? And I've seen you do a few things, but I want you to tell us about how you got involved and the different things that you're doing to make yourself a name in the industry in general.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it was first, it started with social media. I really started putting things out there in social media that were just like, this is what we're doing. This is how we're value adding. This is how we're increasing the property values that we're doing. This is us blowing up one of our cabins because it's better to put in 2 pads. And so we really went in, we hit it hard on social media, which was one of the things that we were told is probably a big way to get deal flow in. So I did it because I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I'll get deal flow. Well, it started getting noticed. And then I got on like different platforms and started writing articles and just posting them out there. And it wasn't even that I was like targeting anything. I was just talking about what I knew. Like, this is what we're going through. This is what we're seeing. And so as I was putting the articles out there and I was getting to know people, and I network really well. Like, I'll go to my neighbor, like wherever our parks are, and I'll go to lunch with all the people who own parks in the neighborhood because I just want to know what they're doing. And I want to, get to know them. We cross collaborate a lot and we send each other business. So I have a woman who I love, and she has this amazing park, but she can't fit big rigs. So what does she do when she gets somebody who's got an oversized rig? She sends them to me.
Yeah. Okay.
And then when I get overflow, I send them to her. And so it just makes sense. But some the other things is that like they have different projects that they're working on. So this one in particular is working on a safety course. Basically, it's a safety book that you put into every office, and it's got all your safety numbers and everything else. And she ultimately wants to create that into a one-touch app for park managers so that they can put all their staff on it. And that way, when things like the hurricane happen, you can push a button and everybody knows the protocol that they need to follow to get everybody to safety, especially on a park that's like 98 acres.
Yeah.
Everybody's at different ends, and it takes more time to get them in one room to give them instruction than it does to be able to send out one text message or one message in the system that says, hey, we're following these protocols, get everybody here. And so she's currently working on that, and I've been collaborating with her on that. And then yesterday, a gentleman just contacted me, and he builds calculators, and he goes, I've been like watching what you guys are doing, and I know there's not a good calculator for the RV park industry. He was like, would you guys be willing to collaborate with me, and let's build you guys a calculator? And that way we can use that and you guys can have it. We'll name it after you and everything. It's like, I got a calculator named after me.
That's so
This
good.
is such a great way to integrate yourself into the space where you're not relying on wholesalers, relying on a specific mentorship or community, relying on brokers even. It's really a way to deepen your relationships in the local community and in the asset class industry in general. I mean, I saw you published a book.
Yes.
I see really professional.
I'm waiting for the second one to come in. So yeah.
I mean, like, this is stuff that I feel like people are not able to do when they make these investments because they don't hire management. There's no time. There's no time to get to do all of these things.
Yes. And I am a full believer that, and management, I think, is a big deal. I think that a lot of people get caught in their single businesses and they run them and then they're like, you don't have any time. So I am very much about, I know where my lane is and I stay in that lane, and then I hire people in for the things that I'm not good at. So my social media is built by another team that I have on board that they do all of that for me because I don't have the time. I'm connecting with people one-on-one, and I'm bringing more deals to the table, and I'm, bringing people to the fund, and I'm doing all the things that I need to be doing. So that was one of the things that I was like, I can let that one go.
Mm-hmm.
And let somebody else do that. But then we don't have time to completely underwrite everything either. So that's when we brought in our CFO, because we were like, Pat, listen, we had him do a couple of underwriting for us, and Patrick came back and he was like, he's amazing at it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And so he was like, I want to bring him into the team. And so it was like, okay, let's make sure that, let's get him in. And so then we started passing him all the underwriting deals, and he does all of our webinar calls. And then, we brought in Rinda, because it was like all the back end work. Like I don't know how to do any of that. And so she's amazing, and she's always on it. And so we brought somebody in to do that. And so all of us could kind of find our lane. And that way we can just specialize in what we're doing, and we're not overly stretched or stressed out, or, and even with the parks, we have managers that we hire, that we bring in. And I have a manager that I send to each park, and she trains each of our park managers, so that we're not the ones that are solely doing that either. So it's become a streamlined system in the last year.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. I mean, that's the way you do it. That's the way you do it, right? And I guess for you, you're doing a fund now, and you've been thinking about it, and you're doing it. For all of your parks you have, are all of them for you do you have an exit in mind with them currently for each individual park, or is it something for you guys are wanting to hold? I mean, obviously with like a seller finance deal where you're in for nothing, like that's something you want to hold on to for as long as you can. But I guess as it relates to what your exit strategy is for tomorrow, like is tomorrow we want bigger parks, or we want more parks, or what does, I guess, the evolution of that look like from an exit strategy standpoint?
So we're currently aiming for bigger parks right now. The two that we're supposed to close on, actually right now we're working on one that we're closing on, and it's actually a huge park. It comes with a full barn restaurant, a marina.
A marina,
and,
my goodness.
Yeah, like a whole marina that actually, when we went into it, they have this marina set up so that they have these boat slips for storage. And he was like, well, we've got these 10 slips that people come in and they order from the restaurant. And he was like, we have lines out into the middle of the lake, and each ticket is about $160. And I was like, why are we doing storage slips? Like, get rid of all those and just put in more of these restaurant slips. And so we're going to do that. We're going to increase the volume at the restaurant. There is a casino actually going in down the road down the lake from us, because we're on a lake. And then we have about 200 more spaces that we can fill out. So we can actually expand. And so we are expanding that. This is probably going to be one of the first bigger expansion projects that we've done. We've done smaller ones, but now we feel like we've played in the space enough that we can actually expand larger. So we're going into expand like 200 more spots and put in tiny homes and things like that. There's two other large RV communities that are near us. One is Margaritaville. And they charge about $14,000 for the season, and we're currently at $3,000.
Wow.
So
my gosh.
Absolutely increase what we're doing. And we have a huge wait list.
I can literally see, like, we worked closely with Pat for almost a year. So I can see his face right now in my mind as like, you're telling me this. And I'm just going, oh my gosh, this was probably so fun for him to underwrite this and negotiate.
Oh yeah. He just kept calling us, and he was like, dude, I can't even. He's like, the way that I'm seeing the returns on this, he was like, I don't even understand why the guy is leaving. So
yeah.
Is there a world where you can partner with that casino to shuttle people from the park to the casino and like somehow partner?
Well, I don't know. Casinos are kind of a different beast in themselves. Patrick, actually, one of his biggest clients was MGM in Vegas. So he's dealt with casinos, and they're just kind of a different beast. But the great, wonderful thing about this casino is that, one, we're one of the only restaurants on the lake.
Nice.
So we have one of the only white sand beaches on that lake. There's like 3 of them, and we own one of them. And so people are constantly coming in. Where our restaurant is actually known for having live music every Saturday night. So we're constantly packed in there anyway. And everybody else, it's so funny because it's like the different groups of people, like Margaritaville and the other resort out there, they're known for kind of having the kind of the bougie clients, and we're kind of the redneck clients. And so we pull in a huge group of people because they don't necessarily want to be over there. They want to just hang out and have a beer.
Yep. And they want accessibility.
Yeah. They just want to hang out and have a beer and have a good time and listen to good country music. And so they come and they two-step on the dance floor and listen to live music on Saturday nights and do, you know, Tuesday night bingo on their phones and trivia. And, you know, they come in to watch all the games. So we went to visit the first time and there was a game playing and it was like the place was packed.
Wow.
So pizzas flying everywhere. I mean, it was a great thing to see. So huge value add opportunity. They were in the middle of putting in a pool when the gentleman decided that he could no longer do this and he needed to go do something else. And so we get to finish everything out and build it out to exactly what we want it to be, keeping in mind what he already had in mind and build on what he's already done. And this park already does phenomenally cash flow wise. So we're getting it. It's actually an $11 million. It's worth $11 million currently, and we're getting it for $7 million.
Creative finance. Seller finance?
So yes, he's seller financing most of it, but our fund, that's why we're actively raising, has to get him out of a loan that he had with private money lenders.
Got it.
So, but the rest of it, yes.
Okay.
So
phenomenal. What a journey from, I bought a house in an hour to I decided to buy resort land and this place in Scottsdale and build, which is, I'm a planning commissioner. Okay. I understand, like, and a previous contractor. I know how hard that is and how stressful that is. Good Lord.
Well, the crazy thing is with the resort, when we bought it, well, one, they started at 1.6 million with the price. It was just the dirt. But so it worked out because they started at 1.6 million. We ended up closing at 565. So we got $1 million off. And when we closed, they handed us all the plans, all the stamped work, all the architecture.
Beautiful. You didn't have to go through any of it. You just had to hire someone to do the job.
Hire somebody to do the job.
Did you take him golfing or something, or what did you do to get that rolling?
The our resort,
$1 million off the land.
Yeah.
You know, actually, that was crazy because they came. It was actually brought to us by one of our mortgage brokers, and so he saw it and was like, "Hey, I know you guys are investing," and he really wanted to go into it, but he couldn't finance it at the time. And so Patrick brought it to me and he was like, "Hey, let's look at this." And I was like, "I don't want that. I don't know what to do with dirt." And so I pushed it off. And then he came back and it was like 1.2 million. And he was like, "Hey, they lowered the price." And I was like, "I still don't want it. I don't know what to do with that." And so a couple weeks later, he brings it back again and it's now down to 900,000. And so he was like, "You need to look at this." And I was like, "Fine. If you want me to get it," I said, "offer him 500,000 in cash and see if they'll take it." And so he was like, "They're never going to take that." But he went back and told them and they came down to 700. And so he came back and I was like, 535. That's all. That's what I'll do.
She's
and so
good.
Back at 565. And then he goes, "Well, they offered us 565. What do you think?" And I was like, "Did you sign the paperwork?" And he goes, "No, why?" And I was like, "Sign the paperwork."
Before they change their mind.
So we signed and got everything and, you know, and then we're like, "Okay, I guess we'll build this." But it was really just my not wanting to have it that kind of pushed it down so low. Like I was not in love with it. And that actually was a big lesson for us too, because it taught us that you should never fall in love with anything.
So important. So important to remain unemotional about this stuff. I hear a common theme though in what you're doing. And I know this is a common theme for everybody else too. And that is funding. Once you figure out how to fund and leverage debt, you can rinse and repeat. And you can even make mistakes and get out, you know? And I think that is like, for me, that is the biggest hurdle I see, aside from picking a lane. You got to pick a freaking lane. You can't have 10 different asset classes. You're never going to be the master. You're going to be a jack of all trades. It's going to be really, really tough to scale and succeed. Not that you won't have a good this and a good that, but funding. I hear that you mastered and leveraging funding very early. And I think that has to have helped you so much.
Yes, yes, it has. And my thing is that it's just, I truly believe that's what's meant for you will always work out. So, when it's come to buying things, there's not been anything that we have lost that we didn't need, or that we didn't not need. And so everything that we've closed on, it's just all kind of fallen into place. And there have been moments where we've been completely stressed out thinking it wasn't going to happen. And then something happens at the end where we creatively figure out exactly what to do to make it work. But that's the thing, is it's just like sometimes in those moments, that's when you start to realize, okay, like if I can just pivot the way that I'm thinking about this, like maybe I just change my thought process on it and I'll find a way. And so that's why I thought that when we went into creative financing, that was such a game changer for us, because I was like, oh no, people are actually doing this and it's working, and like you can do this. Because like the idea of going into anything with zero money was just so foreign to me. And so people would say it and I'd be like, oh yeah, whatever. And now it's like, after we did our first one, it's like there's so many different ways that we're like, well, what if we did this? And what if we did this? And like, what exactly is their issue? So when we do talk to like people who are selling their parks, one of the big things that we do ask is, okay, like what would be your number that you want to hit every month? Like what makes you comfortable? And then we work backwards from there.
Beautiful. Okay. That's a really, really great tip. That's a great tip for being able to negotiate with the seller. Incredible. Landon, do you have any more questions for?
I'm speechless. It's just beautiful to watch. Not only just someone kill it, like that's what's really cool, but also seeing a female thrive in the real estate space and kill it. It really is. Like it's always, every meetup I go to is 95% men, and then there's a wife there, and it's really cool to see a female be so much an activator. You nailed it on the head when you said that Clifton Strengths was so nailed on. I'm also an activator too, and a learner. And it's just beautiful to watch where you came from, starting up into that single family home and meeting friends. That was kind of the activating mode for you to get going in this, starting single family and quickly just ramping up at a speed that not many could likely mimic or recreate. It's possible, certainly, but they have to have your tenacity and all those things. But it's just beautiful to watch and see the success you're having and where you're going to go. And it'll be fun to follow along in this journey with this new park that you're putting together.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You know what? It's been a lot of fun. I think we've learned a lot. I think the biggest lesson that I have for anybody out there that's thinking about getting into real estate is absolutely like, you just have to do something. Like you can't sit around like learning. I get so many people who are like, well, I haven't gone through all the modules, or I haven't read all the books, or I haven't, and I'm like, I think I listened to 2 modules before we got into our first deal. Like I read 1 book before I bought my first house. And like, that was really, and I tell everybody, that was the hardest thing that I ever did, was buy that first house. Like that was the hardest investment because I didn't know anything. And then, from there, it's like, I bought a beach house while I was sitting in France a couple of years ago, and I didn't even look at it. It was $1.6 million. And we signed on the dotted line without ever being in the house ever. And we rented that thing out for like $17,000 a week. So, that's the thing, is it's like, you have those opportunities. You have to just do it and stop waiting around for a golden opportunity. And because you're never going to find it, because it's literally in front of you every single day and you're just ignoring it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Pace says that every single time. Is he goes, how does he phrase it? He goes, you have a life altering opportunity every single day.
Every day. And it's not even just like, it's like, I see people who are in the community and they've been there for 2 years and they're like, this year I'm going to do something. And I'm like, what do you mean this year? You should have been doing things. Like, you've had 2 years of education. That's 2 years longer than I've had.
Yeah.
And
I learned that. Yeah, we had a guy on my team.
In a year.
So. We had a guy on my team that I met at a meetup that I put together. Mind you, again, I've been in the community a year and 8 months. And I put together a localized Phoenix Scottsdale Power Hour get together. I'll bring the leads. You guys start ripping. And a gentleman showed up, and he says he's been in the community for 2.5 years. And he goes, I'm a closer. That's what I am. Like, he's never done a deal, mind you. But I listened to his calls, and they were sufficient, and they were good enough to be a part of it. So I brought him onto the team and got him warm leads, got everything structured with the ecosystem and all the systems in place, and created his habits and his standards and all the things. And he got that first deal. And what do you think happened after he got that first deal? Disappeared.
Yeah.
Disappeared. And I've never heard his name since.
Which is so
Really?
weird.
No.
Why? Like, do you feel like it was like, do you feel like he
Ego. Just ego, I think.
Huh.
I mean, there's
like, I got one I don't need anymore, or I got one and now I'm doing a bunch of business and I don't need to talk to anybody about it, or
I created this self-image that I'm a closer and that I'm in real estate and that I'm doing the thing. And then once he did the thing, it almost like it closed that loop on the Apple Watch that you stood for 6 hours today. And so he's like, okay, I'm good. Now I can actually tell people, and I'm actually standing on something that I actually did a deal.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
That's
I have the craziest other thing. Like, I see people who are like, I'm, doing the things, and I'm in multifamily and I'm doing all this stuff. And they're like, gang ho. And then when you actually talk to them, they actually haven't done any of that, or they've done like one little thing. And it's not like good for you for like asserting yourself and like being out there and like saying, but my problem has always been is you're teaching other people to do it, and you're standing on this platform of you've done it.
Well, that's got to be particularly challenging for somebody like that's an activator that's jumped in to the action part. And like, this is so prevalent in this industry. Super prevalent of just talking about, we know we need to talk about what we're doing, about what we want to do, even if we haven't done it.
Yes.
And there's a divide between who's listening to who as an expert.
Yes. And that's always the biggest thing is you absolutely put yourself out there. You absolutely tell people that this is what you're doing, but be honest. Like, these are my goals. This is what I plan on doing for the next year. This is what I want to do. And these are the things that I'm going after. But when you start talking to people as in, like, oh, well, when you do this and this is how I value add. And I'm like, but you've never actually done that. So you don't understand like the ramifications of what you're saying if it goes wrong, or, just have you ever, that doesn't really work in what you're talking about. Like, they'll talk about like, oh, well, we're going to value add it like this in these, say parks, for example, under 50 pads, you probably don't need golf carts. It's probably not a good value add, but people are out there saying, oh, well, you can value add by adding golf carts. That's more of an expense. Nobody's going to rent your golf carts. That's bad advice. So,
and this is time, right? Time and lessons and the grit and commitment that you have to make to service these investments.
Yes.
And that is what has allowed you to become a subject matter expert in your industry, which brings you so much credibility, which is why your pipeline is continuously being fed. For everybody watching this, what Mychele has accomplished is a multi-pronged effort. Okay. You don't get this stuff unless you do all those things. Yes. And you don't do it once. You don't write one LinkedIn blog. That's cute. No one cares. You commit to the blog. You commit to, oh, great. I'm going to parlay and leverage this into a book. I'm going to parlay and leverage this into a speaking engagement. I'm going to 25 speaking. The point is you become a fixture in what you're doing, and you can only do this, guys, if you pick a lane.
Yes.
Pick a lane. Pick a market. Become an expert. Do the thing.
Yes. Big lessons is focus. Pick your lane. And I tell every newbie who comes in, find your lane and focus on it for at least a year. And I guarantee you'll be successful if you just do the thing every day for a year.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So Mychele, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Mychele Bisson, which is MyChele Bisson. You can also actually just launched a webpage. So it's MycheleBisson.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. I put a lot of articles and different things out on there for the industry and different things and different insights of what I'm seeing, like in my parks and what I'm seeing in my friends' parks. Because I know a lot of people across the country that own parks, actually across all of North America. I have friends in Canada who run huge parks up there. We are currently actually underwriting all the way up in Alaska. So that's kind of exciting. Wow. Yeah. And then you can also, if you want to find out how to invest with us and invest in our deals, we actually have Bisson Peak Ventures, which you can also find on my webpage. There's a link that leads you right to that. So
perfect.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today, Mychele. I hope there's like 1,050, 100 bajillion lessons in this podcast. So take them and do something with them. And I hope you guys all have a great day. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.